Remember, we are celebrating the life of the great Nkrumah, but we're going to delve into our news review, starting with the Daily Graphic.
Now, the Daily Graphic says Cocoa Board gets 1.3 billion. 21 banks financed 2018-2019 cocoa purchase. The full story is on page 3 this morning. Also, youth across the globe attend Pan-Africanism confab in Winnipeg.
I'm sure they're inspired by Nkrumah. He was the father of Pan-Africanism.
He
was, though.
Okay. Now, government orders bust $44 million loss to the state. And the full story of that is on page 20 this morning on the Daily Graphic. And also, Ghana to receive $10 billion to improve roads. That's what we have contained here in the Daily Graphic and other stories.
Do you want to do the Ghanaian Times and then I'll do the online stories?
Fantastic. The Ghanaian Times says 11 power purchase agreements to go. We'll be looking at that story shortly. The full details are contained in page 12 of, or in the Daily Graphic, page 12. Also, in Cocoa, police grab 23 suspected robbers. Cocoa Board secures $1.3 billion loan for purchase of cocoa 2018-2019. And finally, Immigration Service rounds up 82 prostitutes in Medina.
Wow.
Yeah. Page 13, read it.
I hope they catch the customers as well, right? Because they are both engaging in illegal
You read
activities.
online stories.
Okay, so I'm going to read from citynewsroom.com. I said here, stop making former CEOs board chairs of institutions. That's coming from the Auditor General, Domlevo. And struggling Akosombo Textile sends home 600 workers. And UEW saga. Court dismisses former VC's suit challenging removal. We've saved Ghanaians from paying more fuel. That's coming from Amewu. And finally, I'll give you the honors of doing this.
Yes, Dan Abudapi is saying that NPP have failed Ghanaians after lying to them. That's what the paper reports this morning. Okay, now we are indeed joined by Edem Agbana. He's aspiring for the National Deputy Youth Organizer of the NDC. Good morning, welcome to Breakfast Daily.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm great.
This is your first time here, isn't it?
Yes, first time on CTTV, but been on your radio for quite a number of times.
Okay.
And I'm happy. Today is Founders Day.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's Kwame Nkrumah.
Memorial Day. We changed
it. They have tried so many times to distort history, but if it is in white, he's celebrating the founders.
Yes.
Why would you say they are cake?
Oh, they are cake. He's a cake. He's talking about Founders Day. It's not about Founders Day.
It is Founders Day.
It has since been changed
Okay,
to
it's
Kwame
Nkrumah's Memorial Day.
That's what we know.
Any reflections on the man and his life?
Well, certainly, Kwame Nkrumah is one of the best things that ever happened to this country. And I can say that where we are today as a country and the fact that Ghana is still seen as a gateway to Africa, and we are undoubtedly the most respected and the most revered country in sub-Saharan Africa. All these foundations were laid by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. It's important for us to pay glowing tribute to his personality and his vision. Today, some of the very things that his tradition opposed when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was president and leader of this country, some of those facilities, some of those visions are the same things that today have become indispensable in our developmental agenda. So Kwame Nkrumah, for me, deserves a lot of glowing tribute from us as a people. Unfortunately, some of us did not meet him, who were born long after he died. But his legacy, his vision, his books, which they tried to destroy.
Oh, let's not politicize the man's
I'm not politicizing it. all of those things continue to inspire many of us into greatness. So today is a very important day in the history of Ghanaians.
Yeah. But let's not also forget that he was a man of many flaws. He was not flawless. He made a lot of mistakes. So in as much as we are celebrating him, we can also learn from some of the mistakes he made.
We also joined by Kamal Deen Abdullai. He is a National Deputy Communication Director for the NPP. Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Daily once again.
Good morning. We cannot rewrite the history of this country. The fact remains that indeed the man Kwame Nkrumah is the first president of our republic. The fact also remains that indeed nationalism, which was seen as a cause to liberate this country, had begun way before Kwame Nkrumah came on board, and had people who had vision to get Kwame Nkrumah on board at a point in time. He did come in with his ideas. At a point, there was a fallout. When a fallout came, he quickly said, let me outsmart these guys. Let me say we want independence now, which in fact, you know how he gathered that? He was the first UGCC executive to have had a car. The first car bought by UGCC was given to Kwame Nkrumah to use. And his task was, as a general secretary, go around the country, drum the spirit of nationalism in the ears of our people, tell them why we need independence, tell them why the whites are shortchanging us. He did so. So having gone round, and those who brought him were here in Accra, in their law chambers and working, sitting down, the people knew him. So he came back and said, look, I'm going to get my political party form, CPP, and got CPP. Then, of course, the first election, he was elected as the prime minister. The fact that someone brought you into this country, the fact that you were bought a car, the fact that there were people who were thinking how to emancipate the people of this country before you, meant that there was a collective fight.
But according to what you're saying, those people sat in the offices while he was going around the country.
No, but
anyway, I want us to move.
I'm just to take the most of yes, we are celebrating Kwame Nkrumah's Memorial Day because yes, he's had the opportunity of being the first president. He's had the opportunity of ensuring that we got the independence, of course, as it were. He declared it. Nonetheless, we had a collective fight in place. Reason why the president of the Republic of Ghana today said, look, let us celebrate all. Let's have a Founders Day in place. And let's have the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day. In America, when you go, we have Founders Day celebrated. One person is not being hinged on, that he's the only person. No. People came in with collective ideas. And they came to form what we had, what we have as called America today. So for me, Founders Day is good. Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day is not also bad. Let's wish him well.
Well, in the spirit of celebration,
as far as people of Ghanaians are concerned, he won an election.
Yes, congratulations.
That's how. And congratulations, of course.
Yes,
your appointment
as Communications Director.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'm supposed to be communicating. That's all right. Maybe a lot will come with it.
Congratulations.
That tells you.
Maybe you be the first.
I know.
Anyway,
to get a car.
Maybe I'll be the first to get a car. Yeah. Maybe I will not give away people.
Let's go to our first story. Stop making former CEOs board chairs of institutions. This is coming from the Auditor General, reading from citynewsroom.com. The story says, the Auditor General, Daniel Domelevo, has criticized the practice of appointing former heads of state institutions to occupy board chairmanship positions. Now, according to him, the practice festers tension and makes it easier for the current leadership to be undermined. So his comments come at a time when there is an impasse between him and the board chair of the Auditor General's department. Now, at this particular gathering, a lot of statements were made, really strong statements. He even mentioned issues of the special prosecutor, that his office is not resourced. If you go to his office, he's like, I'll not say anything. I'm charging you to go to the office of the special prosecutor. You only have one secretary. There's no investigative body in place. He spoke about quite a lot of things. And also, the fact that to him, we learned this issue of having boards from people.
Yeah.
Now, if you go back to these countries, you mentioned a few countries, that if you go back to these countries, they do not even, some do not even have boards, and even where they have boards, the boards play only advisory roles. So there's still the back and forth between him and the board chair, of course, which the president has been petitioned. I'll start with you, Edem, on this particular story.
Yeah, and if, before Edem goes, if I can share a quote by him with you guys and our viewers. He said, "The practice of bringing back former public servants to their old positions or bringing former chief executives as board members leaves much to be desired because clearly there will be conflict. Since I came to office, I have removed more than 200 people from office last year and this year. If they bring you back years later as a board or board chairman, board member or board chairman, you can easily undermine who is there, and so we have to take a second look at this. And some of the board members, even if they are appointed, they think it's their second coming of Christ. They will not be leaving." And then he also goes on to say, "It is really disturbing. We find board members overriding laws. Public servants in Ghana, from my point of view, are governed by laws, and therefore the universal principles of corporate governance cannot override the laws of Ghana."
Yes, quite very an interesting suggestion by the Auditor General. Over the past 1 year or so since his appointment, I think that he's gradually cutting a niche for himself as a very strong advocate and protector of our laws and our systems. It is important for us to emphasize that before we can make any significant progress as a nation, we ought to ensure that our institutions work. And that is why in 2009, when we had the privilege of hosting President Barack Obama, among the many things that he said, one of the very profound statements that he made was that Africa does not lack strong men, but we lack strong institutions. What he actually wanted to say, or was saying, is that it is important for us to build institutions that are self-sustaining, so that it doesn't depend on the performance of the individual there, but the institutions, the values, the practice, the principles will continue to work long after even the individuals are not in that particular position. So even though it is important, and we are all excited that we have an Auditor General that is outspoken, an Auditor General that is seem not to be afraid of the government, and is ready to back anytime that he feels that his work is being impeded. It is also important for us to look at the institutions and how these institutions are working. The practice of appointing former CEOs as board chairs or as board members is not new, admittedly. When the NDC was in power as well, we had some people that were former CEOs that were appointed as board members and board chairpersons. But you ought to ask yourself, what was the rationale behind such appointment? One, it is assumed that because you have served as a CEO of a particular institution, you have gained some level of experience, that if you are on the board of that particular institution, your advisory role that is expected of you, because you are very experienced, you have run that particular institution for a while, and you have deep insight into how that system works, you are better positioned to advise. So that is the basically that is the rationale behind appointing board chairs or former CEOs as board members and board chairs. However, it is also interesting that over the past few years, we have also seen that some former CEOs assume, so there is a certain level of silent competition where a former CEO who is now a board member or board chair wants to compare his performance as CEO, not his performance as board member or board chair, with the current CEO. When it happens that way, you will have this silent rivalry and people trying to obstruct the work of each other and all of that. But I think that if you have institutions that are working and clearly define the role of the board, you clearly define the role of the CEO and how the ministries even fit in. What is the supervisory role that the minister in charge of that particular sector is playing with all of these things? It shouldn't be a problem. I always make the argument that I don't need to like Kamal to be able to work with him. If I find myself in the same organization with him, he doesn't necessarily have to be my friend. He doesn't necessarily have to be a colleague that I admire so much. But if you are in an institution, whether as CEO, as a board chair, or what have you, there is a purpose. There's a reason why you were given that appointment. Work towards that vision and ensure that you achieve that goal. You don't need to like yourself. So I don't think that the fact that somebody has served as a CEO and been appointed as board chair or board member is necessarily the problem. The problem is that we have failed to clearly define the role of the boss. Sometimes we allow the boss to...
I disagree on that one. Okay, because the role of the board is clearly defined in the Act and even in the Constitution.
I'm sure if you make me land, so clearly we have failed. If I say we have failed to properly define the role, I mean, in theory, in theory, in the Constitution, in the boss mandate, they are there. But several times we have had situations where, after a particular government is out of power and audit committee reports are out, then we are told that either the CEO made a decision or took a decision without the involvement of the board, or the board took a decision that they were not in agreement with the CEO. So in practice, it is, I mean, the laws are there. The problem we have as a country is not that we don't have sufficient laws. We have them. It is about the implementation. So it is properly defined in theory. So you can clearly say, yes, this person is supposed to perform this role. This is the limit to which you can go. But the question is, in practice, is that really the case in most of the institutions? Because when you look at the Auditor General and his tension that is between him and his board chair, if clearly, we all know that their function, the two separate functions have been clearly defined. So why are they having that tension in the first place? It is because in practice, we are not really putting it, into use. So I think that is not necessarily the problem of having former CEOs serve. Their experience. For example, if Kamal Deen serves as, for just an example, YEA boss for 8 years or 4 years, because his government will be 4 years old. I mean, he will go soon. After 4 years, and then years later, the MPP comes back to power and they find it prudent to appoint him as a board chair of YEA. It is simply because of his experience and his insight. And there's something exciting about the experience. Sometimes, after you leave the office, upon sober reflections, then you can purely identify your mistakes, and then you wish that, oh, I could have done this better. So with that experience, with that sober reflection, you are better positioned to serve on the board. So I don't agree with the Auditor General when he says that appointing former CEOs undermines the work of the current executive body or the structure. What the problem is that we have failed to make people work within their limits, and that is what we should be interested in addressing.
Well,
Kamal, I want you to also touch a bit on his concerns regarding the Special Prosecutor's Office.
Okay, that's fine. You see, we are a nation or a state of laws, and I believe that there's an act establishing the Auditor General's Office, which is Act 584 thereabout or so, in 2000.
The Audit Service Act.
Of course, the Audit Service Act, which talks about his appointment. That is how come the former president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, got him appointed and sworn in as the Auditor General of our country. I'm sure at the tail end of the time he was
exactly in the Constitution, the appointment of the Auditor General.
Of course. I mean, the Constitution, yes, Article 187 thereabout talks about why we need an Auditor General. It tells us that there are laws primarily defining or telling us why our financial management in this country ought to have an Auditor General, so that we could have a smooth sail in terms of checks and balances and all that. You see, if he agrees with me, Yao Jumelevo agrees. The law that brought him, same law prescribes, if you like, channels by which a board that he's supposed to work with are supposed to go by. You see, there are defined parameters. So for me, I found it very unfortunate for him to stand out there to make such comments. Because we all know, not too long ago, 2-3 weeks ago or so, he had cause to write a complaint to the presidency, okay, about some conduct or the conduct of his board chair. Today, you have been given a platform to speak to a matter. Then you say the practice of appointing former CEOs or former heads into boards for him to stop. Yes, it's an opinionated, statement he made. But for me, generally speaking, someone will say that, look, it's because of the impasse between you and your board chair. That is why you made this comment. That is what someone is going to say, clearly, objectively speaking. And must you try to play to the gallery? No. I find it much more playing to the gallery. You have cause, or you've had cause to write a complaint. If the presidency finds it within his purview to set up a committee to look into it so that we can amicably resolve this matter, we move on. But I can tell you, the point Edem made, that look, institutional memory is so important, experience is so important. Going forward, let me tell you, we cannot handle this country without recourse to where we come from, without recourse to our history. And we have people who have experience, who actually were there yesterday, and then saw what happened yesterday. And our forward march demands that let's look at what we did wrong yesterday and correct them, then we can move on. Well, let's look at what we did right yesterday and improve on them, and we can move on. For this comment by the Auditor General, trust me, it's a non-starter. Me. I think,
are you saying that once he sends his grievances to the president, he should have just kept quiet and all that, because he's accountable to the people of Ghana?
You see, don't let people think you are showing bad faith. First, you see, this is a country where we have, sadly, we have polarized the entire system.
We should wait for how it
I'm saying sadly.
But the letter was sent to the president about 2 months ago.
I'm aware there has been some engagements. Let's not forget that the president appoints the audit board service. You know that.
Yeah.
It lies within him to do that. Let's not forget that the president, by same constitution, when you look at 189 clause 4 or 5 or something, well, just read it. It tells you the president has the right to remove or to dissolve the same board again with justification. However, when it comes to Domilo's appointment, Domilo's appointment, president doesn't have the right, it doesn't lie within him to say, I've sacked you, tomorrow you can go to work. He cannot.
Yeah.
You get that? So some security he has. So let me say what I can say. If president says I should sit home, no, the constitution will debar him. He cannot say it. Then someone sitting somewhere will say, oh, it's the politics of the day. Because Mahama appointed you, you are trying to play to Mahama's way. Even though that is not politics you are doing. We all applaud him. We commend him. Me, I like what he's doing. He's quite meticulous and detailed. And he doesn't joke with his work. I agree. Mother Ghana first. However, your actions and inactions could get someone read politics into what you are doing. And when that happens, we soil the entire system. So this comment could have waited. When you have an unfolding issue, when you have an impasse which is not yet resolved, then you go stand somewhere and say the attitude or the if you like, the appointing former CEOs or appointing former directors to board chairs by appointers for him is not too proper. Quickly, I will relate it to your problem, and I will say that, look, this is politics, and cheap one, of course. He could have just been quiet. Again, for me, no one is gagged from talking. No one is censored. Freedom of speech is actually embedded in our constitution, as we all know, a very strong one. But then you measure what you say outside there as a public officer. Don't talk too much.
Okay. Fantastic.
When you even talk, let it appear much more an education to us.
It sounded like an education.
Well, no, it's emotional for me. For me, trust me.
Based on the
Based on what is happening,
currently,
someone will say it's based on emotions that you made it.
Come on, just touch briefly on the special prosecutors before we go on a break.
Look, for every start, there will be teething problems. We sat in this country and we all agreed that, look, let's fight against corruption. Under John Dramani Mahama, he brought a novelty, I mean, an idea which sought to have the power to fight against corruption, as it were. I think he had something called there was an office created just to ensure. Battendam was a leader or something. Okay. You know, under John Dramani Mahama, he initiated the same. We also campaigned on the fact that when we come in, we will look at how we'll get a special prosecutor in place. There were arguments that, look, Article 88 of the Constitution will not even permit you because prosecutorial powers are within the AGs. But then there were also arguments the same article or same provision would allow the AG to cede certain powers to a delegated person. Now, based on that, then we got a law actually enacted in Parliament. We have an office in place. When was it enacted? when was he appointed? An office is supposed to be put in place. A board is supposed to help him work. I'm aware that the board has actually been constituted. Yeah. I'm also aware that, yes, there are efforts to get the office, and the office has been put in place. Look, all this come with some financial commitments. Even though we have to show that we are really interested in fighting corruption, but it comes with some financial commitment. And I'm sure that indeed there are talks. Ever since my uncle Martin Amidu was appointed, he doesn't talk so much about what he says. I mean, what he does. He hasn't come out to complain that, look, I don't have so much. The last time, yes, he spoke a little. He said, look, let's have these things quickly speed up, and then I can get my work on board and all that. I am very sure there's something done about it. It will be sad for us to know that we just came in to set it up without it being.
Okay. So I see Edem shaking his head. We will continue, but we do have to go on a quick break. Remember, let us know what's on your mind with the hashtag Breakfast Daily and the WhatsApp line
0550-585-832. Stay tuned to Breakfast Daily.
It's engaging, detailed, and loaded with factual and incisive analysis. It's The Big Issue, your preferred Saturday morning news and current affairs analysis program on City TV. Tune in this and every Saturday at 9 a.m. and hear the newsmakers discuss the top issues for the week.
At that time, Charlotte was complete. I'm not defending Charlotte. I'm talking about the way we behave like hypocrites and ostriches in this country. At that time, she was a perfect person.
It's The Big Issue with Stella Madonu on City TV. This and every Saturday at 9 a.m.
Live music, interviews, poetry, and more with your favorite personalities. Be our guest on Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. for the most exciting moments on TV. Join Kojo Akoto Boateng for real entertainment right in your living room. Saturday Live on City TV and City 97.3 FM.
Welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily on City TV. Thank you guys so much for spending your holiday with us. Before the break, we were discussing a call by the Auditor General for us to stop making former CEOs board chairs of institutions. So not really us, but the government. And I think Edem will take your closing remarks and then move on to the next topic.
Yes, I wanted to just make a quick remarks on the special prosecutor bit. I can understand why my brother Kamal is struggling to talk about how effective the special prosecutor's office has been so far, especially after they made so much noise about the special prosecutor's office being a panacea to fighting corruption. We were of the view that we already had sufficient structures to fight corruption. We had the necessary laws. We had all the institutions that if we empowered them and allowed them to work without political lens, they could actually fight corruption, because corruption is a canker that all of us are opposed to. And I think that any government that is committed to fighting corruption must be commended. And that is why when the NDC was in power, we did everything possible to fight corruption, to the extent that we started even prosecuting our own when we were in office. Many, for example, even this issue of Jida that today some people have landed in jail. Prosecution started from the NDC. So we made a commitment to fighting corruption. Now, when you made promises and painted the picture
that...
it
continued from the NDC, but not started.
No, it started. The prosecution started from us. And in fact, at the time that they took over office, all that the judges needed to do was just to pronounce judgment. There was no case where they needed to make any new legal arguments in court. And he can confirm that and all that. And then some of them have ended up in jail. But the point is this: when you created an impression that the only means by which you can fight corruption in this country was to create the Special Prosecutor's Office. And I mean, so much noise was made in this country. The Article 88 that he was making reference to and all of that, we made all of those legal arguments. And we had some lawyers from the NDC who even attempted seeking interpretation from the Supreme Court, but the ruling went against them and all that. Now, Parliament has enacted the laws. You have been given the legal backing for you to go ahead and fight the corruption with that structure that you're talking about. And so many months, almost 2 years in office, we are told that he still doesn't even have investigators. He doesn't have the necessary...
I don't think it's been 2 years, though.
No, I mean, they have been in power for 2 years. And this is one of their cardinal campaign promises. So if indeed, even it doesn't mean that they were waiting for the office to be set up by Parliament before they will start looking for the investigators and the necessary facilities for him to do the work. So after all the noise, office has been created. And we still cannot hear anything about special prosecutor. Does it mean that they have to admit that it means that close to 2 years in office, they haven't done anything about fighting corruption? Because indeed, they made us believe that the way they wanted to fight corruption was the special prosecutor. If indeed they had attached so much priority to the special prosecutor's office, by now the office would have been up and doing with effective, personnel, resources and everything, because it's a priority area. But you haven't done that. So if today you are telling us that you have resource challenge and that is the reason why the office is not well equipped to start working, then you are giving Ghanaians a cause to worry, because what it means is that you are not... He made the point that, there are some financial distance and all that. But you know what? What is even more important is that we know, I'm telling you that we know for a fact, that because of the numerous number of scandals in their own government, they are even afraid to make the office work. Because
who are we?
And these are allegations.
We in the NDC, this is not an allegation. But every day we wake up to all sorts of scandals. He can't tell me that the administration has not been without corruption scandals. And fortunately for us, the Act permits private citizens to be able to petition the special prosecutor. So when they set up the office and it is running, day in, day out, we'll be sending the petitions from boss, petition from the presidency, and all of those other petitions that involve the corruption deals in their government.
Thank you. We do have to move on to the next topic.
Now we are dealing with 11 power purchase agreements, and according to this report, page 12 of the Ghanaian Times, the government is to terminate 11 power purchase agreements and defer 7 others due to financial and legal burdens. Now, in a nutshell, I'm quoting the energy minister. He says, this will by far be more than... Okay, so currently, based on all the PPA agreements signed, as well as the energy we already had in the system, we have about, from hydro and other power plants, we have about 11,000 megawatts, and Ghana needs about only 2,400 megawatts. And the projection into into like 10 years into the future, we will not even need the 11,000 megawatts. So it appears that ECG oversigned all these agreements. So what the energy minister is doing in respect of this is that 11 of these agreements would just be stopped, terminated, and then 4 others would be pushed to 2015 to 2025, I think, and then the 3 others would also commence from 2025. I think I'll start with you, Kamal Deen, on this particular story.
Before I come on the PP A's, I would like to tell Ghanaians that, look, our commitment to fighting corruption is huge and it's enormous. We said, look, there must be someone who has what it takes to fight corruption for us. We went and look for someone not in our party, someone from the NDC.
You couldn't find one.
Wait a minute, please. From the NDC, who they vehemently opposed to. They came out and said, no.
I don't want this to be a discussion about special prosecutor.
I just want to tell Ghanaians how committed we are to fighting corruption. First, we mooted the idea. We said it was in tandem with the provisions of the Constitution. They said, no, we'll fight it. Went to Supreme Court. They were thrown out.
Okay.
We came. We still got someone and said, look, this is a statesman. This is a man who has carved a niche for himself. Let's get him on board to help Mother Ghana. He's been sworn in. He's gotten his board in place. His office has been prescribed or given. And of course, clearly, he's going to, or he's ready to work. We are, of course, we want to see how it's going to be. And I can tell that there's something going on. But you see, I understand him. He's campaigning, so he has to make sure that the delegates see him much more energized as a deputy youth organizer. So he can say so many things.
Good for helping him campaign.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he wants to show his scratchy powers as a deputy national youth organizer. No. You see,
but he is kind of right though, because he needs the resources. If you look at the Barack Obama saying we need strong institutions, not strong men.
He's kind of right.
We have the strong man. We need the institutions so that he can get his work done. But let's go back to the topic where this was.
He needs. But remember, you see, we are not reckless.
Yes.
We do things right.
Yeah.
Gone are the days, okay, when someone will carry about 18 cases to court.
Come on.
Let's do this topic.
If the story you read talks about this power agreements that we've had, and it tells us again that look, should we are able as a nation to get all these agreements working, then this is how much power we're going to be having as a nation or as a state. It was about 11,000 megawatts or something. Yes. Surely we do not need 11,000 megawatts now.
Because the 11,000 megawatts we have, sorry, let me just quote this, 11,000 megawatts we have is costing Ghana $586 million every year.
So if there's a review that tells us that, look, we're spending so much on what we actually do not need, it stands to reason that we try to stand down on some of these things and make sure that we do also projection in making sure we are cancelling this. Let us also make sure that there's a history in this country, a bad one, of course, the Doomso one. You remember, not too long ago, some reckless people in government.
Let's not politicize
this. If it's about recklessness, Doomso happened even between the period of 2001 and 2008. So let's not associate Doomso and recklessness. Let's deal with the issue itself.
If you are giving a money
and let's put the national interest first in celebration of Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day at least.
If you are given a 4-year mandate to handle Mother Ghana, and you decide to plan this country, okay, in darkness for 4 good years, it means you are reckless. You have given 4 years to handle something. Make sure you better our situation for us. You make our situation better, environment better, living conditions, everything better. Then 4 good years, you could not even end, or you could not at least solve a single problem. Then you are reckless. I'm saying that there's a history here. So in even trying to terminate some of these agreements, let us do projection. We may need 2,000 megawatts now, but based on our projection, next year, next 2 years, next 3 years, what quantity of power will Ghana need? We are talking about industrialization, and it's so important. And industrialization, of course, obviously, is energy demanding. We shouldn't forget about that. We are talking about, if you like, one district, one factory, which is still the industrialization drive I'm talking about. We need power. Okay? The sugar factory that they have built in Commander, which up to date doesn't even produce a single particle of sugar, needs power. We're told by the then Minister of Trade, Cosby Gabra, that look, after building it, they realized that they need power. ECG, they should get, if you know, a plant that will be specifically for that particular factory. Projections were not made. If they had done that, I'm not sure would have been where we are today. So I'm saying that, look, it will be in a good direction for us to say that, look, this is waste. We shouldn't go about it. However, in making sure you are going to sign off these particular companies, please let's make projections, or let's do some projections and say, look, sieve it. If we do not need all these companies, we need only one, so that we could sustain ourselves going forward. Let's do it that way. Yeah. I think so that the country would actually still. Well,
in response to that, the power minister said, the energy minister said that 7 of these contracts were deferred. So some would actually continue. So they'll pause for now. They'll continue from 2015 moving forward, and the rest. So I think that's in order. Edem, on this particular issue, during the Doomsor era, I think the NDC oversigned these PPA agreements. Sorry, the ECG under the previous administration, who were faced with this Doomsor wahala. They oversigned these agreements. It got to a point we were told that about 45 power projects were in place. And I'm like, why? And now it has gotten us to this point that the current energy minister is saying that we are paying $586 million annually for power we do not even use or need.
Well, certainly when it comes to the power sector and the investments that were made during the NDC era, it's one particular sector that on any day I'll proudly, as an NDC member, defend the actions that we took to address the crisis at the time. Crisis situations demand some very urgent solutions. And you realize that at the time, all of these power purchase agreements that we entered, they were necessary in order to address the problem. And today, we seem to be enjoying some stable electricity because of some of those investments. What is even worrying for me as a Ghanaian is the fact that right from opposition and now that they are in government, the MPP still behaves as if they are in opposition. And when it comes to the power sector, they have contradicted themselves on so many things that they have said. And I will give you just a few examples. Today we are reading that 11 power purchase agreements are to be cancelled. In August 2017, at a town hall meeting organized by a sister station, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and I recall, he said it that about 20 PPAs that the NDC signed were to be cancelled, and that would save the country $300 million. You can check the records. Just a month or two after, the then energy minister appeared before Parliament, and he mentioned that 11 power purchase agreements are to be cancelled, and it will save the country $7.2 billion. See the contradiction.
There's no contradiction. The $7.2 billion. No. Let me explain the $7.2 billion to the viewers before we go.
Malcomprehension it's a disease. Malcomprehension is a disease, so don't worry.
No, come on, let's not say that. So $7.2 billion. No, please. The $7.2 billion.
You can say that, yes.
$7.2 billion is a projection from 2018 to 2030, and the $500 million was what is being charged annually. So this is how much we are paying annually. But the $7.2 billion is a projection between 2018 and 2030. Come on, let's not do that, please.
No. What you read is quite different from what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. That in 2017, November, the then energy minister, Honorable Boachi Ejako, told Parliament that they were cancelling 11 power purchase agreements. Take notice of the numbers. And that will save the country $7.2 billion.
Okay.
That's 2 months earlier, the Vice President had said 20 power purchase agreements were to be cancelled. 20. Don't even look at the difference in the numbers. And that will save the country $300 million. How do these figures correlate?
You see, please,
then a year after, we are almost in.
Let's not do this. The 11 power agreements were terminated. No, I don't think you're being fair to the issues. The 11 power agreements were terminated, and the rest, were deferred. So some have been terminated, some have been deferred, and this constitutes almost 20.
No, you see, I'm sure if you had allowed me to even land what you're saying.
Please land.
So this is the point. In the cancellations, when Dr. Bawumia was speaking about the 300 million that they were saving, they claimed they were saving Ghanaians. His focus, and he said that the reasons why they were doing that was because the contracts were over-bloated and all of that. There was no mention of the fact that we were producing excess that we didn't need. So when you make these arguments that contracts were overbloated in the energy sector and there was corruption, and you made all this noise about even the America power deal and all of that, which when we saw you trying to review it, we saw what came out of it today. Your minister is sitting at home because of that. You see the propaganda. So when they made this noise and said they were saving us 300 million, they told us that it was because these contracts were overbloated. Today, the 11 contracts that they are cancelling and some that they are deferring, they are telling us that it is because we are producing excess and these ones ought to be deferred so that when we have increased capacity and we really need it. So which is which? What are we believing? Why are we cancelling these contracts? Is it because of the perception and the claims they made from opposition till today? And the vice president it's there. The record is there. He said they were cancelling the contracts because of the inflation of the contract sum. Today they are telling us, the energy minister is telling us that 11 contracts will be cancelled, and the reason is that we are producing in excess. See the contradictions. Who is running this country? What are we to believe?
As to your claims,
it's not claims. You can't say. Is it not true that in August 2017, Joy FM organized a town hall meeting and the vice president said those?
Okay, thank you very much.
Is it not true that your minister?
But move on to another story, and then you have your bites on that. So
okay, so the next story
ATL
says
600 workers.
Struggling Akosombo Textiles sends home 600 workers. About 600 workers of the Akosombo Textile Limited have been asked to go home as a shortage of raw materials has hit the company in recent weeks. We spoke to some of the workers there. Just about 2 years ago, Akosombo Textile Limited had about 1,000 workers, and to now they are sending about 600 of them home. Someone said, we are really suffering and we wish something is done for us as soon as possible because we are really dying. How can you work for 4-5 months and be paid in bits and pieces? Another worker said, these days we work for 2 weeks and then we are asked to go home. Why should this be happening? And they also go on to say that management is not happy with them discussing this, but it's something they are struggling with. So let's touch on it as we are even celebrating
before I come on,
in commerce legacy and the fact that we want to talk about the need for the economy to industrialize, because that's the only way we can develop. Earlier this week we were complaining about fuel prices, right? So if our currency is not even strong enough and we are not producing and we're hearing these stories, what's the way forward for us as a nation?
Well, before I come to that, my brother impugns contradiction in the affairs of governance today regarding the energy sector. Now, who calls him? That's what somebody says. You see, when you resort to knee-jerk approaches, this is where you land us. I told you that they were clueless when they plunged this country into darkness for 4 good years.
I think for the average Ghanaian, Kamal, respectfully, for the average Ghanaian, government is government, right? So whether it's NPP or NDC,
I am speaking
I care about my self-interest and the interest of the nation.
I am saying that the average Ghanaian who sat in this country for 4 good years without light and had to suffer as a result of some clueless and visionless government that was in place.
Kamal Deen, let's not
that average Ghanaian, I'm telling that average Ghanaian is the one I'm speaking with, should know that his money or her money, okay, taxpayers' money, okay, is being used to pay for what we do not need now as a result of someone not doing proper projection and just keep on signing power purchase agreements left, right, center.
Okay.
That is, by the way. Let's move on. The figures that he gave, we all know very well that they don't add up.
Let's move on to the Akosombo topic.
On to ATL.
Yes,
sad news here. I'm not happy. 1,000 workers been laid off. 600,000 workers, and out of that, 600 laid off. I think it's not a welcoming news at all. It's quite not a pleasant news. But see, we're talking to Ghanaians. You said we should talk to Ghanaians, and then we should try as much as possible to cite Ghanaians towards positivities.
And national interest, not political interest.
Attitude.
Yeah.
If you are wearing a very beautiful dress today, laced with a wonderful tie and dye made in Ghana, great one. Attitude. It means that When we have a president who comes to tell us that, look, these textiles are very important and that we could find a way of selling it or marketing it. When President Rawlings came, he sold the fugu. See him anytime and he's in that small fugu. And people started wearing it. Okay? When President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo also came, we saw these wonderful African prints.
And Mahama made Friday wear as well.
Mahama,
he started the Friday wear. Was it
under Friday? Yeah, of course, under Kufuor not.
Okay, but they all sustained this, right?
It was Alan Tramantin who started the Friday wear thing for us in this country. Okay. Vision.
I'm sorry about that.
Oriented persons.
But I didn't see Mahama wear African prints.
No, he had to copy. So that I'm talking about initiation, origination. You see, it was Alan Tramantin who started it when he said, look, we need to, have a Friday wear, which will be African stuff.
But
so I'm making this point.
Okay.
Attitude is our problem. Today, we have had to grapple with this problem of 600 people going home because I think that if ATL was actually in motion and then production was high, I'm not sure we have been where we are today. We have people who travel all the way to Far East just to import African prints
into the country.
Fake ones, of course, into this country at a very higher cost. If our businessmen say that, look, let us patronize what comes from ATL. Let's patronize what comes from Printex or whatever. I don't know. There are a couple of them. Let's patronize what actually is made here. And then, of course, authorities also, customs and other people who are supposed to man our borders, ensure that, look, no such praise will come into our country. We're going to domesticate. We're going to buy what actually is made in Ghana. They will be in business.
So why haven't we done this, Kamal?
That is a national issue now, and that's the point. We need to substitute.
Wrapping up.
If we do not substitute imports or find a way of substituting imports in this country, we're going to have problems. And the imports far outweigh our export now, and there's no way to substitute it. How? I'm saying that, look, let's find a way of trying to revamp these companies, get them energized, get productivity going up, and that's the duty of government today.
Well, other people said that perhaps we should have revived these industries before we start doing one district, one factory. Why didn't we help the current industries that are struggling revive before we talk about one district, one factory?
You know, when you liberalize your environment, sometimes it's quite a difficult thing. I mean, the private sector plays a role, and I think that yes, government will come at a point to see how they can cushion or assist you and all that. But sometimes you need to pull your weight as a private person. Look at the ATL, for instance.
I want you to wrap up, please.
Yes, I really do not know the percentage or how their shares are actually divided or, given. But I think that there's some private, if you like, hands in it. As to how they go about their arrangement, as to what relationship they have with government, where they are and why they are where they are today, I think we need to look further into it.
And it's also not unique to
but I think
GTT has also been struggling.
Let us try to patronize what is made in Ghana.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we can save our companies.
Thank you very much. Edem, your closing remarks.
Yes, I don't quite agree with him when he says that the problem of ATL is a problem of attitude. Because now more than ever, I have seen that there's a certain craze, even among young people.
I mean, we're all wearing local
African prints.
I
personally don't remember the last time I wore. I don't even remember the last time I wore a suit or something like that. I wear my African print daily. I think the problem has to do with how governments over the years prioritize ATL and how we do not put in place protectionist mechanisms to protect our local industry. So ATL is struggling to produce, and yet we have not strengthened our border laws, we have not strengthened our borders such that fake materials are coming from China and all over. It is important for us to know that before we can actually promote competition and make our local industries competitive, we have to get them to produce at a cheaper cost. So production cost must be less. But here is a case where we have a problem. When we import these fake textiles, they are way cheaper, and nobody wears an ATL or an ATL stuff, and then it's written all over your face that this is fake or this is original. So everybody wants to go for convenience, which is the cheapest one. So we have to put structures in place to prevent the coming in of this fake and imported fabric. Material, and when you go to Makola and all the markets around, We see those who deal in the fake ones. A few times, the Ministry of Trade and Industry have set up a task force to go in there and impound this local, this fake ones. But after they are impounded, you see the political heads and political people, stakeholders, calling the institutions and asking them to let them go.
Okay.
We
well, that we will say is an allegation for now. No, we would end you at this point. Thank you very much.
No, the laying off of workers is not only limited to ATL. It's a reflection of what's happening in the economy. Many other sectors, people are losing their job because the economy is struggling.
Thank you very much, Edem Agbana. He is aspiring for the position of National Youth Organizer and also Deputy National Youth Organizer for the NDC, and also Kamal Deen Abdullai. He is the National Deputy Communications Director for the NPP. Quick messages here. Martin Amidu is quiet because he loves his salary. This is coming from Kweku. Another message from Abdul Rafiq Zakaria says, Kamal Deen is always on point. See how he's digesting the issues intelligently and humbly, but yet the NPP folks did not see the need to vote for him as the National Youth Organizer. They always go for incompetent people. I feel sorry for them. Anyway, so that's your message, Abdul Rafiq and Kweku. I've seen more of your messages. We shall be reading them shortly. Stay tuned to Breakfast Daily. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming. Okay.
We'll be right back, guys.
At Voltic, we are more than just leaders in Ghana's drinking water industry. We are part of the society, refreshing the hardworking people of Ghana and keen contributor in adding value to the lives of the Ghanaian population nationwide. Voltic Ghana identified some key priority areas to concentrate its corporate social responsibility efforts, setting measurable goals to be achieved in many communities.